This is what you're looking at. This is the brand new 2024 Ford Mustang. This one's particularly convertible and looks like a Camaro from this angle, but we'll get to that in a second. Basically updated interior, updated bodywork, chassis tweaks, all the stuff, but it's effectively an S550 underneath that's just been thoroughly reworked, but it's effectively that base platform, so it's not 100% a new car. There's some good things about it, there's some bad things about it. First and foremost, not a big fan of the grille. I think it's entirely too large. It takes up way too much of the front of the car. The front quarter panels, Nick Knight said, it's very Camaro-esque. I don't know if that's probably by accident, because the Camaro is number 3 in sales. Good news, we get a Coyote.
Probably by accident.
Good news is we keep the Coyote. There's not an electric motor at the driving any of the wheels. 6-speed manual box is still an option. And they've actually launched a new performance variant, which I'll get to in a second. I'll put my thoughts in kind of a quick 30-second review of this car, right? It's going to be awesome to drive because this Mustang platform is awesome to drive. How do I know? I own one. I don't know why I got aggressive there. I apologize.
Unnecessary aggression for Mustang.
Where's a crowd?
Crowd control.
Which is what I want my vanity plate to say, by the way. It's going to be great to drive. The interior on these things is genuinely awesome given the price point that this is going to occupy. So there's a lot of good going for it. I don't like the exterior, like I mentioned, but here's the bottom line. This is a V8, naturally aspirated, even though boosted V8s are still awesome. Rear-wheel drive, manual gearbox. It's literally everything we tell auto manufacturers to make, and it's another one. This thing was clouded with rumors of all-wheel drive, hybridization, electrification, and the debut car has literally none of it. So even though I'm not a big fan of the way it looks, I am a huge fan of the fact that it exists, especially today.
It's Ford's only car. They might as well make, in the US, it's literally Ford's only car. They might as well make it enthusiast-based because that's who's going to buy this.
Right, and it is, let's be real, there is no need in the market for this. Like, logically speaking, that's why, we're in an avalanche of crossovers and things like that. But it's a Mustang. The Mustang was the first car I ever loved, so much so that I went out and bought one and modified it, and hopefully soon, I'm actually going to be doing some research this week, hopefully soon it's at least going to get some minor surgery to rectify the clutch issues and start getting the driveline ready for boost. But real quick, before we dive into Greg's thoughts on this, we have a couple comments on this. Nick Knight, he's here to say that the 24 Stang is hideous. Cool Camaro, bro. I do, again, kind of agree with that. Steve is not a fan. It's like they stole the car design from a game. Cyberpunk. Wow, they managed to get Cyberpunk to work. And we all know how that game rated.
Epic shade at Cyberpunk, which is,
Charlie.
It's granted.
Yeah. Charlie, what's up? You're a little late to the party. We're a little late to the party today, so hang out, have some fun. Let's talk. Here's a good question for you, Greg. Asked by Jake, why do you think the horsepower numbers advertised are crank and not wheel horsepower?
My guess is because that they either dyno tested in factory and they probably just do it from the engine at the crank of the engine as opposed to just having a wheel dyno set up because it's more efficient that way in the factory. I don't really know. That's my guess.
I think you're right.
Honestly, not sure.
I think a lot of it is, okay, so not so much for the Coyote, but for pretty much every other engine, that engine goes in multiple different things, right? So are you going to chassis dyno it every single time it goes into a new vehicle? Or are you just going to engine dyno it because you have an engine dyno? You do. You develop the engine on them. You're just going to advertise what it made in a controlled environment where they can control the humidity, air density, all of that stuff. So it's literally, it made X amount of horsepower in this environment. Every single one is going to be, quote unquote, true to those environmental factors. A turbo 4-cylinder will go in the small let's just say the EcoBoost, right? It goes in the Mustang, goes in a crossover, goes in bigger SUVs, things like that. And it just makes more sense to dyno it once, even though the engines are a little different, but you can do those little differences on an engine stand way easier than bringing out a whole new car.
My other thought on that is it's also a higher number than a wheel dyno. And outside of enthusiasts, no one really knows what that means, honestly. Like, if you ask a common car commuter, what's the difference between crank horsepower and wheel horsepower? No one's going to know what the hell you're talking about. So I think that I'm a marketer by trade. I'm putting on my marketer hat. It's probably so they can say the higher number as well. So it's partially like, oh, our new Mustang makes 600 horsepower as opposed to like, oh, 490 at the wheels. So like it's probably to
Right.
make
I mean,
it feel a
at
little
some
bit
point,
nicer and cooler to the those that are not enthusiasts.
at some point, some marketeer advertised that number, and yeah, it's simple, right? My car makes this much horsepower in this condition, as opposed to saying it makes less. Some people pay attention to that. It's like, wait a minute, it gets worse gas mileage and worse horsepower, even though like the wheel horsepower could be close to a competitor. You know what I mean? I
Right.
fully agree. Like I believe there's marketing. I believe there's R&D stuff into it. Less wear on
Exactly.
components. Like you don't have to bring out a transmission and all that stuff.
Exactly.
Justin comments on the Mustang. The grille is on the larger side. Very much so, yes. I thought that was BMW's thing to have huge grills. Apparently, people don't read the internet and think, oh, well, if BMW's doing it, let's all do it. No, stop.
It's for BMWs and also Paul Wall.
I have no idea who Paul Wall is.
He's a rapper from the South that has massive grills.
Okay.
Like actual grills. But for me, I think on the Mustang, I'm actually a fan of it. I was not at first. I slept on it, gave it a few days, I looked at it again. I like how it looks. Definitely some Camaro vibes in there, not gonna lie. I really like how the back end is designed here, how there's that like sort of triangular kink in the back. I think it's a really interesting design feature, and I think that I saw that on the Hyundai Elantra N and liked that first. I just think it's something unique and different that companies are doing with back ends. I think it's a really nice design element. I also like the front end. This is going to seem weird, and of course, the Volvo is going to come into play. But you see where right here in the video, where the two sort of nostrils are towards the outside of the car, and then those little up pieces that are diagonally sort of up.
Yep.
If you look at the brand new V60, the SPA V60 from 2018 forward, they have that same sort of diagonal upward piece. And I think the V60 is one of the best looking cars ever made. Honestly, it is beautiful, it is really well done, and I really like the front end of this car from the lights down. From the lights up, a little bit of a different story.
There's a lot of quarter panel going on there.
There's a lot of quarter panel. The lights are they're slung a little too low for me. I think the light cluster is nice. I'm liking the triple light in the front to sort of mimic the triple light in the tail light. I'm a big fan of that. However, the hood is a little wonky for me. The grille is definitely way too big, I feel. I like that they've made a Mustang WRX with the hood scoop. It's really interesting.
All right, so that's...
I mean, overall design aesthetic, I'm a fan. There's a couple things that I'm not a huge fan of, but it's better than I thought it would be, honestly, given the renderings we saw, given all of the hype around it, and I especially love the performance variant, which we should definitely talk about next. But your reaction to what I said.
For so many reasons, you're right. And so many reasons you're... So first of all, let's start from the splitter up. Those little supports, if you want to call them that, those little fins there, that's an aesthetic straight out of the current Mustang, right? The current S550 has that. I agree with you with the headlights. I think if they were a little taller and kind of swooped into the body a little bit, as opposed to like looking like someone literally was like, all right, we designed the body, there's the headlights.
Yeah, they did the same thing that Jaguar did with the F-Type, where they had a really nice headlight aesthetic, and then they just made it really short and like squinty a little bit, and it's just not. I just don't like. I'm not a fan.
The hood vents I like because even going back to 2015 with my Mustang, the Mustang has had functional heat extractors in the hood, and that's exactly what these are. I believe so. I haven't gotten a chance to look at it, but it was in the 2015 to 2017. They were on the 2018 to current model. I have to imagine this is the same thing. It's a heat extractor, or it's somewhere for the... Since this one's more centralized, probably has something to do with getting the hot air away from the inside of the engine and away from the radiator and things like that. That front end just looks like, oh my gosh, we designed this whole thing. It looks exactly like the one we're currently making. Quick, make it different. That's the part that's eating at me. That's the part that's really eating at me, because I don't think it's a bad looking car. I just think it looks like it's designed for design's sake. Like almost like how it's not nearly in any way, shape, or form in the same league as the Civic Type R. But it's a car that just looks designed for design's sake, which I think the original, or well, not the original, but the first Civic Type R that we got over here in the States, it just looks forced design. Now, that being said, yes, Drake, I do agree that at least it makes legitimate noises. Here's the other thing, right? When you start to black everything out and everything starts to blend together and that grill sort of gets lost in the Dark Horse, now we're talking about something. So you can get this in multiple guises. It has like a street version, it has a track version, and it has a. You seriously want to go on the track version with things like a SCCA certified roll cage. I think that's the S model. Roll cage, beefier everything. This is like, hey, this is the performance package on steroids, right? So my car came with bigger brakes. It comes with the Tremec 6-speed manual gearbox instead of the MT82, which is significantly stronger.
Way better.
And I've seen some images floating around. This thing has a pretty special version of the Coyote. Basically, it's using the same connecting rods, basically the same type of designs connecting rods that they use in the GT500. So think stupid strong. It also, from pictures I've seen, has twin throttle bodies, which again helps it make it breathe. And they're targeting 500 horsepower with this car, which I think is on the low side of things because this engine's going to have 12-to-1 compression. They're already getting 460, 480 out of the Gen 3 Coyote. They threw a bunch of other goodies at this one. I think 500 with ease. I think this engine could make close to 550 without even breaking a sweat. I mean, let me put it to you this way.
Yeah.
The engine in my Mustang, which has less compression, older version of the Coyote, is making 500 at the crank. You put all that goodness in, but I mean, I think it's really cool to come out with a new sort of classic Mustang, like a new performance variant, a new, hey, look at this thing. Like, we have a fast one at launch, not a Mustang GT performance package. Then a couple years down the road, the 350. Then a couple years down the road, the 500, to continuously reinvigorate the brand. So that gives me hopes that we're going to end up with like a 650 horsepower 350 and a GT 500 that will.
Yeah, who even knows? I saw a rumor today that we're going to get a GT 500 variant of this in 2026, which makes sense.